What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Today, I'll be going over some crowded backfields that make it really difficult for certain players to be useful in fantasy. Maybe we get some pieces from the backfield that'll be useful, but there's always a situation where we've got a crowded backfield and there's just some guys we just can't use because volume's everything. And if you're not getting it or you're struggling to even see the field, then your fantasy value is going to take a hit. Now, things could change if we see injuries, we see trades, so we should always just defer to my rankings. But as of right now, it'd be really tough for these guys to return their value in fantasy. So, we're going to start off with the Broncos backfield, where the odd man out is clearly Royce Freeman, right? If this backfield remains the same, which is actually a pretty big if, then Freeman is close to undraftable for me. He's the clear number 3 guy on the depth chart, and he was already super inconsistent as number 2. But I say a big if because this feels a little bit like what we saw last season with Kenyon Drake. Remember at the beginning of the season, I was saying you guys should probably be going out and trading for him because it looks like they're trying to deal him, and if that happens, well, any team he went to was going to boost his value in fantasy. This feels a little bit like that. I mean, Freeman's a good running back, and there's no real reason that they should keep him and just keep him on the bench. That doesn't make sense. Why not get something for him? However, until that happens, I wouldn't be touching him out of like 14 or 16 leagues because you shouldn't be drafting a guy in the final rounds being like, well, he might get traded. There are better picks. If he gets traded, we'll reevaluate this. But as of right now, I mean, you can't go there. Next backfield is the Jets. And I know some of you are like, what? The Bell has this all to himself, right? It's a great situation. Not so fast. I mean, Gore is just forever going to have the legs of a 29-year-old, right? Like even when he's 65, he'll go out there and he'll give you some production. And they just took Michael P. Ryan in the 4th round. Now, I don't think P. Ryan's all that good, but they have been vocal about wanting to ease Bell's workload. And we know how much every single franchise just loves Frank Gore. This might be his 16th season in the NFL, which is nuts. Just incredible that he can last that long. But he's just coming off a 179 touch year. So any other human being, if you said this is their 16th season, you'd be like, yeah, they're going to get like 4 carries. They're going to be like a cheerleader on the bench. Not Frank Gore. He can come in there and get you 175 touches. So considering what Bell did last year, you take away volume, it's not that great. I mean, he just had 311 touches. That's a lot. And he was still just the running back 17 and 21st in points per game. This is not a good rushing offense, and the Jets do have the 3rd toughest schedule when we're looking at forecasted win totals. So there's not going to be a lot of games where they're up late running the football, and that's bad for fantasy. I know half of you are going to say, no, that's great. The receptions will be there. I promise. It is always better for a running back to be on the favored team, and that's not going to happen a whole lot for the Jets this year. It's a bad offense, and it's more crowded than people think, so it's a situation that I would avoid. Next, we have Marlon Mack, and this one makes me sad because I really like Mack as a player, but unless there are injuries, he's going to be useless in fantasy. I don't care what they say about this is our 1 and our 1. He's going to be useless. I mean, think about it. Rivers loves throwing to his running backs, right? So maybe it's like, oh, he's going to get a bump in targets. He is definitely 3rd in the backfield receiving order, which makes him like 7th in line for targets. And it's not only that, but when's he going to see a design target? Like maybe he gets a few dump offs, but these are going to be dump offs. These are going to be like he happened to be on the field on 2nd down and no one's open, so they dump it off for a few yards. These are not going to be design targets to Mack. Hines will get a few of those for sure, and they're definitely going to want to use Taylor on screens to get the ball into his hands in space. But not Mack. They're not going to be designing plays to get Mack involved in the receiving game. So that leaves him at what, like 175 carries? Maybe, yeah. Maybe he could have that many carries, but what, like 5 or 10 targets? I mean, he's basically going to be Frank Gore last year with fewer targets. So I get it if you want to use him as a handcuff to Taylor. That makes a lot of sense. The thing is, he's not being drafted in handcuff range. He's being drafted in, he could be valuable in the flex spot range. That's not a good situation. You cannot overpay for a guy who is in the spot that Mack's in. Next, Duke Johnson. And honestly, just poor Duke Johnson, right? I mean, this man, he just rips up college, does great, proves he can be a featured back in the NFL, never misses a game as a pro, and yet he will likely never be given the chance at a featured role. For some reason, NFL teams just do not want to use him, even though he's incredibly efficient every single season. That being said, I will acknowledge Duke has a ton of upside this season if they do decide to use him over David Johnson, or if David Johnson gets hurt again. Then, yeah, if they give him that role, he could be a high-end running back too. So I'm not saying he can't pay off. But Bill O'Brien just traded away DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson. And he just gave Carlos Hyde 245 carries. So assuming no injuries, Duke will, yet again, be relegated to a purely pass-catching role on a team that doesn't target their running backs all that much. And now he's behind a good pass catcher, because say what you want about David Johnson. I'm in the camp where he's trending toward dust at this point. But there is no one who would argue that he's a worse pass-catching back than Carlos Hyde. He's an upgrade. So this is a bad situation for Duke Johnson, which is unfortunate, because I really do think he would excel in a featured role. Next backfield is the Packers. And last season, we saw Ronald Jones finish as Ronald Jones, not Ronald Jones, Aaron Jones. We saw Aaron Jones finish as the running back 2 in half PPR, and Williams finishes running back 34. So both of them, I believe Williams was being drafted later than that, but both of them should have at least returned value for fantasy. The problem is they scored 57% of the Packers' touchdowns last season, at least their offensive touchdowns. If you look at other backfields that have big touchdown scores, right? McCaffrey on the Panthers, Henry on the Titans, Zeke in the Cowboys, none of them come all that close, and a few of them are way off in the total touchdowns. They like not even close. I think McCaffrey was the closest to like 51%, and even that's not that close. So fairly obvious that this backfield is going to see regression in the touchdown department, and that's without even considering the changed situation. Before the draft, before it happened, they were saying they want to add another player. They were asked, like, hey, Aaron Jones was really good last season. Do you see him being a featured back? And they're like, not only do we love using 2, we'd really like to use 3. And then they go out in the second round and they take A.J. Dillon, who's 6 foot 247, 97th percentile speed score, 96th percentile BMI. Who do you think they're bringing in goal line packages? Now, I understand that you don't need a big back in goal line packages, but most NFL teams don't. They're like, let's just put the biggest guy out there and he'll rumble it in for 6. Well, if they're under that mindset, A.J. Dillon's going to be out there in a lot of goal line packages. So now you're doing this split thing that they have where they'll throw out Williams for a drive, and then Jones for a drive, and then Dillon for a drive. Well, that's unfortunate for receiving upside, for yardage upside. We expect the total touchdowns to regress, and now those touchdowns are being spread among 3 running backs, not 2. That is not a situation worth investing in fantasy. Final backfield we're going to go over is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And as they stand right now, it is definitely less than ideal situation. Fournette was getting all the work last season, just like he has been throughout his career, but things are expected to change this year. They've been trying to trade him away. They declined his 5th-year option. They bring in Chris Thompson to be a third down specialist. And now they have Jay Gruden as their offensive coordinator. Well, he's never coached a team that's ranked better than 17th in rushing yards. That's pretty impressive. He has never even had an average rushing offense. So expecting him to come in and be like, Fournette's really inefficient. Let's change all this that I haven't been doing rushing offenses, and let's just give him a bunch of carries, right? That's pretty unlikely. He would need like 1 million carries to pay off because of how inefficient he is as a rusher. And so now you consider Thompson's coming in. He's taking away a boatload of those receptions that were keeping him afloat in fantasy last season. I just don't see it. I don't see a reason to take Thompson because even if Fournette goes down, well, Thompson's still not going to get early down work. He's still going to be a third down back. So the only running back you could argue for drafting is Raquel Armstead, and it's only as a handcuff. And I don't know, that means you're handcuffing a guy who I didn't want to pick in the first place, so where does that leave you? So I guess you could take Raquel in like the very last round if you didn't take Fournette and you're just like, hey, maybe Fournette gets hurt and I have a running back 1 or something like that. But he probably wouldn't even be a running back 1. He'd probably be like a low end 2 to a high end 3, like a flex play. So I don't like this backfield at all. So those are the running backs that I would not be drafting because they're just in really bad situations. Of course, a few of them could have good seasons, like I've said, but they need a lot of things to go their way, and I would rather just draft people who don't need a bunch of things to go their way. So that's the end of this one. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button, and how about subscribing to the channel if you're new? Thanks for watching.